Good afternoon, Forrest Fenn Treasure Hunt community. Today is Wednesday, June 2nd, and this session is now in order. I'd like to lay a few brief rules about this session before we begin, just to set some guidelines and expectations. Please have all your cameras on mute. All right, what's going on, treasure people? So the gray backdrop and the blue collared shirt because I just got out of court, but like virtual court. My neighbor built a big $1 million mega mansion up next to my house and flooded, just took all his water and built a giant pipe. And instead of having any drainage water on his property, he just flooded it all onto me. Um, my neighbors down from me have $1 million home. This guy's got $1 million home, and I'm just a little brick ranch from the 50s in the middle. And this thing is a mess. So these guys sued that guy. Then they dropped a lawsuit and just spent like 50 grand building underground retention cisterns to contain this water. So anyway, I wrote my neighbor, Mr. Patel, letters for like 3 years, and he just wouldn't stop flooding me. Because it would cost him. It would cost him probably 20 grand or maybe 10 grand if he did it on the cheap to correct the problem that he created. So this thing has been a big mess and a lawsuit for a couple of years now that's gotten terribly expensive and terribly frustrating. But anyway, the backdrop and the outfit or the costume, because I just got out of court and I didn't think I didn't think my typical backdrop of my throne chair with some people have pointed out my hole in the wall with my electrical wires sticking out at my fuse box. I didn't think that was appropriate. I didn't think my colorful Carpathian rug on the wall was appropriate. So I went with this. And in a Zoom meeting, you can't see my exercise equipment or my window, just the gray backdrop. Gotta wear the costume if you want to play in the game, right? So I just wanted to do a really brief talk about this because a couple of years ago, I have a friend acquaintance, not really a friend, but just more of somebody in my social circle. He was a federal prosecutor, and well, let me back up. Here's what's interesting. Over the years, I've gone really hard at the chase, at treasure hunting, and enjoyed it. And when I run it by friends and I just tell them about it, and these are all friends who haven't participated in the chase, I always enjoy getting responses from people like, what's going on here? What are your thoughts? What are your beliefs? And here is what's really interesting. So I guess I will title, wherever the title goes, I'll title this talk Mirrors, maybe, because we all know mirrors are big in the chase, and lots of imagery of mirrors in Finn's writing. But so here's what's fascinating, and I just thought of this getting out of this court case. When I just described the thrill of the chase and what's going on to my federal prosecutor acquaintance, immediately they told me this guy is pathological and he is a narcissist and he's a criminal. And what he's doing, he's very smart because what he's doing is technically not illegal. But, I know these types. I prosecute them. I've seen them before. They're addicted to criminal activity. That's what you're dealing with here. I mean, this person's never read the book. I guarantee you she didn't take time to even watch like a Forrest Fenn interview or research this thing. She knows the type. This is what's going on here. I have one buddy. He was a complete practical joker. I mean, this guy, just our entire life, we gagged the hell out of each other. And as soon as he heard it, he thinks it's hilarious, just like this maddening gold rush fever. And he thinks Fenn is just like this maverick guy with a great sense of humor, and that he's having a hell of a fun time. And he loves it. He's like, how cool, what a cool thing. He's like, man, if you find this chest, you should do something like this. You should keep it going. So the prosecutor hates it and wants it stopped, and it's criminal. And the guy with the great sense of humor thinks it's great, and he just wants it to keep going. He sees people having fun, and this guy riddling, and how cool. Um, I have a buddy who's an engineer and a buddy who's a doctor, and they both look at it really scientifically, and they just like give me advice, like, hey, you know, if you could take the scientific approach to things, well, maybe it's not going to solve the location of the treasure. If you get down to a tight terrain, I think scientific methods can become useful, um, to help you pinpoint something. And that's what these guys were really interested in. They weren't so much focused on moralizing and if it's right or if it's wrong, but just like how can you be effective? How can you be effective if you think you're down to a final terrain, and how can you leverage specificity? And that's how their minds work, and so that's immediately how they see the thing and what they start thinking about. And they're not really focused on anything other than that so much. Um, and then I got a buddy who's a therapist, and he's a real, Jungian. I don't know exactly what his specific emphasis in therapy is, but I think it's psychotherapy, and so that was, he's hardcore into Jung and James Hillman, and um, to sort of colloquialize that, I guess, um, he would he would be fascinated in symbols and imagery and the mythos, and if he were studying a treasure hunt, he'd definitely be pulling Joseph Campbell in and Tolkien in and this entire tradition of mythology. And that's what he contributes, that's what he focuses on, that's what he sees in the chase. um, so just getting out of this courtroom for a minute, God, I hate courtrooms. And some of these lawyers, man, they're so dry and it's so formal and it's such a fucking charade. It's such a fucking charade, man. It's absurd. Um, One more really funny thing. It is a small world. So my judge, I don't even know if I can say this on camera. I mean, I guess not too many people watch these things. Anyway, I got assigned a judge like maybe 6 months ago to my case, to my trial, because Mr. Patel won't just put in the solution that his builder told me they were putting in when they built this property. Instead, he just decides to flood everyone down from him. But anyway, um, I saw my judge's last name, and I remembered hearing stories about a judge with that name from his ex-wife. His ex-wife, who at that time was telling me some really hot stories, and she was, man, she would tell these stories and she would get so angry. And God, man, can I even say some of this on camera? I'm not. I'm not going to go into detail, but they are intense stories, and they involve guns and big, big stuff domestically, and just a lot of really interesting, colorful stories. And it just so happens I know my judge's ex-wife, and have the inside scoop on some of the stuff in his life. So it's just bizarre. It's a bizarre irony to be sitting there and happen to have had coffee with this guy's ex-wife. And I know all his dirty laundry. And it's just human. It's just the drama of human existence. But to pull it back into, I guess, whatever's the thesis of this talk, um, mirrors. I mean, what's fascinating to me is in life, when we are looking at the world, to what degree are we just seeing a reflection of our projected selves, or some aspect of ourselves that we are projecting? I mean, the litigator looks at the chase, she sees a criminal. And I can tell you there's some skeletons in that litigator's closet. I know some stuff there too. Um, won't go further into that. The practical joker sees just a gas, a gag. the scientist and the engineer just, they don't really see anything so judgmental, but they want to focus on how to be scientific with it. I mean, we're all just bringing us to everything that we perceive. And in that sense, um, solipsism, or I don't know, I'm not going to assign some philosophic term to it, but um, are we all just kind of isolated in this are we all marooned on an island of our own thoughts and our own beliefs and our own projections? Are we all just surrounded by mirrors? Are we all in our own Truman Show? You know, the energy in that courtroom, it's just so, ugh, I don't know. And some of these attorneys, I mean, there's a laugh or two, but it's so sterile. Um, I just really vibe on the energy of things. Um, I went around and followed doctors for a while because I was dating a girl who all her parents and her brother, and they're all anesthesiologists, and he's a brain surgeon at the Mayo Clinic, and they all make a lot of money, and they're all medical people, and this is what they do. And when I was young, and I'm seeing how successful these people are with what they do, and they're encouraging me, hey, do this, do this. I was pre med for a year in school, and all it took for me to quit being pre med is I shadowed 3 or 4 doctors. Um, I saw a femoral head be replaced. Um, I saw breast surgery. I saw hand surgery. I saw those 3 surgeries, and not for me. Um, just the entire environment of a hospital and sickness and cutting people. Like, I don't want to deal with the anatomy of the human body. I became an English philosophy major. I want to deal with the anatomy of the human soul and the human mind. Um, these guys doing the femoral head surgery, I'll never forget. They're playing a little radio, and as soon like they're talking to the patient, and as soon as they knock him out, they turn on the radio, and this doctor starts playing "Come On Baby, Make It Hurt So Good" by John Mellencamp, then John Cougar Mellencamp. And man, they had this guy's leg sliced open. They pop. Oh, they took his leg. So this is what's awkward. They just take a leg and they just, and when they did this, the leg goes at just totally the wrong angle, and you're like, oh god. They pop this guy's femoral head out, and then they just grab just a buzz saw, and the doctor's singing "Come On Baby, Make It Hurt So Good," and he grabs this guy's femur and he drops the femoral head off. I mean, I've seen guys working in a car shop be much more delicate with a car than these guys were. But I mean, they know what they're doing. But that stuff was not for me. And I guess if that relates to mirrors, Fenn has this quote: "Success is an omniscient guru." I think a lot could be sort of like looked into with that quote or examined with that quote. But in some sense, you have to find work that reflects an aspect of yourself that feels good. That's not a courtroom for me, and it's not a hospital. Um, Man, and with that breast surgery, they made the initial incision with a laser, so they just went around they went in circles around the areola, and the doctor, well, first he just did it, and man, this smell of like cauterizing, like your skin burning. It's not the fat burning that smells bad, it's the skin, but they're like 30 something layers of epidermis and dermis, and they're cutting through all that. I was like gagging in the corner, and then the doctor was like, "Oh yeah," and he rubbed some menthol on my mask. So, shit, man, who wants to do that for a living? Somebody, thank God. My buddy, one of my friends. So I've got some friends who do all these things, um, but yeah. So when we look at the chase, we all see what we bring to the table, Um, and I think that's in part um, a result of this incredibly nebulous language. And Fenn managed to kind of speak in platitudes and colloquialisms and just sort of like, I think he has a talent for using the most versatile language possible. If you even watch some of these like YouTube videos, everybody's talking about the same thing, Fenn's poem, but everyone's seeing or saying something different. Um, so, yeah, I think that's my talk. I just got out of a courtroom and I'd forgotten just how bad courtrooms feel, but it was quick and it was short. Um, and so I can't wait to get out of my courtroom clothes and take the gray curtain back here and pull it back and get back to some color and some life and something that's a little less stuffy.